Welcome to your standards-based grading video. This is Joanne Millis. I'm 7 Blue science teacher.
And I'm Shannon Gallagher. I'm a 7 Blue ELA teacher.
And we're making this video together to cover basically standards-based grading in South Middle.
So the whole purpose of grading has always been to provide feedback to the student, family, and the teacher. And here at South, we look at how we can inform instructional decisions with grading and how to document student progress. So with those goals in mind, 7th grade science and ELA made the decision to transition to standards-based grading. And we'd like to show you a little bit of why we made that decision.
Okay, so we're going to take a step back and look at the scenario. The title says, which student would you want to pack your parachute? And there's a lot of data down there. And if you look at it real quickly, the student A with the red diamond, that student is all over the place. He does well, goes not so well, then does well again and not so well, and back and forth. He's successful sometimes with the parachute, other times not. And then you got student B. Student B is the blue square. He starts off kind of low, and then something happened between a third and fourth try that it clicked. He understood how to pack the parachute. So if you look at 4th through 7th try, he's rather successful. And then you have student C, the green triangle. And the green triangle figured it out right away, was very successful. Then some sort of misconception happened between the 4th and 5th try, and you see the 5th, 6th, and 7th try not so successful. Now, if we were to grade these students, they all average out to be a 70%. But as a parent, as a teacher, that summative grade of a 70% doesn't tell me much. I don't understand their ending knowledge. I don't understand what happened through the learning process. So they all have the same grade. But if I was to need a parachute, there's only one child I would trust. And that's going to be student B, the student who was ending in the 90s with his success rate of packing a parachute. So how does this relate to standards-based grading, and why are we doing this in our classrooms?
So what we found was that traditional methods of grading don't accurately indicate what a student knows and is able to do at the end of their learning, kind of like we saw with the parachute. Students are required to achieve standards, but the traditional grading doesn't indicate how they did on each standard. So you may not know that your student really excels with fiction but struggles with nonfiction because that grade gets averaged out and it blends those things together to make the lines a little blurry. We want students to be able to explain what they learned or didn't learn rather than explain how many questions they missed. So instead of saying, I got a 70% on a test, we would rather hear students say, I did well at finding the central idea, but I really couldn't support it with text evidence.
So here, the overall standards-based grading is assessing a student's ongoing mastery of a set of standards. So we both have, the science has a set of standards based on the grade level expectations, soon to be the next generation science standards, and ELA has a set of standards.
Our standards are based on the Common Core standards of what every 7th grader is expected to know at the end of 7th grade.
So that's what standards-based grading is. It kind of says it in the name, standards-based, and we look at the grades for each little standard. We do not, based on these things that we used to grade on, we used to grade on like attendance or effort or the participation points or how prompt you were able to turn something in, like by taking away late points. There's other factors other than performance on standards. We took that away, and because of that, our instruction has become more focused on the standards, and our assessments have been more focused on what the standards say, and all of those extra points have kind of gone away. So there's no fluff, and it's really assessing the meat of what we really want the students to know.
We know that these things are important, and we really value attendance and effort and students really being responsible, but we want to report those separately so you can see the difference between what they know academically versus how they're doing with effort and participation and attendance. So if our purpose of traditional grading is for students to be able to, if our purpose of grading is to communicate what students understand, the traditional grading really shows what they missed and what percentages work for them. But standards-based grading Students can explain what they learned or didn't learn based on what's called a proficiency scale. And you'll see these come home from both science and ELA. And that basically breaks down that skill into the little pieces that the student needs to know. So, for example, in ELA, if a student is working on theme, they might say, I was able to identify a topic that it was about, but not put it into a full sentence. And so that really gives them something to work on as they go toward achieving that grade level standard that we hope they get to.
In science, it might look like it's more content-based or some process-based, but in science, it might look like I understand the magnetic forces and opposites attract, and then likes repel, but I may not quite understand how that works for static electrical forces. So the students know what areas to focus on, and we were able to provide reinforcement in the areas needed and able to push forward in areas that we don't need to spend more time on. Okay, so the grade book is going to look a little different. You're not going to see numbers with standards-based grading. It gets kind of confusing. So in the traditional grade book, you'll see John and Sue. They have different grades for the quiz 1 and quiz 2. John, something happened and John doesn't know. Maybe there's a different content. We don't know what's on quiz 2. We just know it's called quiz 2. And he had a 65. He needs some help there. And with the chapter test, he ended up with 70. Sue struggled along the way with this whole chapter, quiz 1 and quiz 2, and still ended up with a 70, so she progressed. But we didn't know how to help her on those quizzes. There was no way for me to identify the areas needed based on she got half right, half wrong. With Gradebook 2, these are some ELA standards there. We can see John was advanced at identifying and explaining text features. We can see Sue struggled with that, and she had a beginning. So there we were able to make educational decisions saying, hey Sue, let's practice this more before we take the summative assessment. And John, you're great. Let's move you to the next standard. So you can see throughout the grade book here, you can see they're developing with one, then we can reassess that, reteach, reassess. And then for the third standard, one was proficient, one's beginning. So we know exactly where to hit each child.
So this is the grading scale that you're going to see in both science and ELA. When you look at a standard, your student will come back with a grade of advanced, proficient, developing, or beginning. Our hope is that every student reaches proficient or above throughout the school year. So proficient means that they are demonstrating everything that we would expect a 7th grader to know at the end of the year on that standard. And advanced is really very rare. We're looking for kids to be extending their knowledge, applying it in new ways, seeing aspects of a concept in a way that we haven't taught because they understand a concept so well, or they're applying that learning that we did teach in a unique way. A developing shows that a student is getting there, but their performance is either inconsistent or they're just not quite there yet. A beginning shows that they're really struggling and that additional support is needed. So you'll see these 4 grades come home, and we're hoping to see proficiency and advanced on all students by the end of the unit.
Yep. So in summary, standards-based grading is really going to provide you and your student with a clear picture of the student's progress towards learning goals, and it will help make decisions where, how do we need to improve this? Assessments and learning to become a process. So they're not in isolation anymore. We're not doing lessons here, 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 and then, oh, bam, a test, and then we're done. It's a continual process where we'll continue to grow and build up upon each other. And most importantly, teachers will adjust instructions to best fit the individual needs of students. They're no longer clumped as a class that got an average of 70% on the test. They're individuals that were advanced or they were beginning, and we can start diagnosing problems sooner and start addressing those. Or start accelerating students sooner, now that we're looking them individually with standards-based grading. I hope this video has helped clarify any questions you have about standards-based grading. If you have any concerns or questions, please contact your student's teacher.
We are happy to help anytime. We know this is a big shift in thinking, and the gradebook can look a little confusing if it's the first time that you're seeing it. So we are happy to help explain or answer questions in any way we can.
Have a great day.